Ptolemy's model clearly reflected the Church's interpretation of the Bible as man being the center of cosmic attention and importance, and moving man from the center of the cosmos to a position of lesser grandeur. Copernicus challenged the Church in what the Roman Catholics perceived as God's intention. In the words of John Calvin on his commentary on Genesis, who will venture to place the authority of Copernicus above that of the Holy Spirit? Following the realizability of Copernicus, it became apparent that a new physics, independent of both philosophy and religion, was necessary. Prior to the Copernican revolution, there was no distinction between physics, cosmology, and philosophy. All could or should be explained by Aristotle and philosophy that reflected the wishes of the Church, and most of all common sense. The synthesis of cosmological models with physics made clear the power of both over philosophy alone, and that cosmology and physics versus philosophy were separate ends which were pursued individually for true but very different understanding. The result of all this was that mankind became disengaged from the center of cosmos, and to many, from the center of God's attention and care. As Bertrand Russell wrote, before the Copernican revolution, it was natural to suppose that God's focus was specially concerned with the earth. But now this has become an implausible hypothesis. Mankind must instead be regarded as a curious cosmic accident. Ultimately, many philosophers, cosmologists, and historians have agreed that modern human logic and the current worldview is entirely unthinkable without the Copernican revolution, as it was the beginning of the visible dichotomy between faith and reason, the latter of which primarily rules our society today. Most agree that this act was the beginning of the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment in Western society. Richard Tarnas summarizes this best in saying, a new universe had dawned, and the sun, whose luminous centrality Copernicus and Kepler perceived as the very image of God, seemed to shine on the world a new light of divine intelligibility. The introduction of the Big Bang sparked a modern debate that brought secular science, religion, and philosophy to a definitive point in our understanding of the universe and our place within it. The current Big Bang theory is a synthesis of many discoveries in varying cosmological models. The first hint that the universe was expanding came from Besto Melvin Silver in 1912, when he observed that 12 local spiral nebula, which were later proven to be galaxies, were receding away from us, some as fast as 20 million miles per hour. Shortly thereafter, Einstein published his theory of general relativity in 1917, in which many astronomers quickly found an error. In writing this error, they discovered a new mathematical solution that suggested an expanding universe. This became known as the unpopular de Sitter universe, as Willem de Sitter was the first to discover this mistake later in 1917. Einstein's error in his work led to his belief in a static model, in a universe that was neither contracting nor expanding. He did not admit to this error until 1923, when conclusive evidence and mathematical proofs against his error were found, when he called his error his greatest blunder. Many scientists disliked de Sitter's universe because it suggested a beginning to the universe, which to many was considered senseless. In 1928, Edwin Hubble and Milton Humason provided the final two pieces of evidence for an expanding universe, combined into Hubble's law. Using the brightness of stars known as Cepheid stars, Hubble calculated that the spiral nebula that Silver had observed were actually extremely distant iron universes full of billions of stars, the first evidence that our universe is truly enormous. Humason calculated the speed of hundreds of these galaxies, confirming Silver's observations and verifying the fact that they were, in fact, all moving away very rapidly in every direction. Hubble plotted the speed of each galaxy versus its distance from Earth, and derived Hubble's law. The farther away a galaxy is, the faster it is moving away from us. Hubble thus suggested that the universe is expanding in all directions. Many astronomers quickly assumed that this meant we were the center of the cosmic universe, but Einstein quickly reasoned that the galaxies were like raisins in a baking piece of bread. As the bread begins to bake, every raisin moves from every other raisin, and from each local raisin, their perspective seems to show that every raisin is moving away from it, the further raisin is moving even faster. Astronomers began to agree that the universe appeared to be unwinding, meaning that at some point in time it had to be entirely wound up. Modern observations show that the universe is actually expanding at an accelerating rate, sparking a return to Einstein's mistake, because Einstein, to correct his mistake and maintain his belief in a static model, introduced what he called his cosmological constant, a mathematical term which counteracted the contracting force of gravity. The Big Bang was problematic for arguments from both secular science and religion. The Big Bang rejected the young Earth creationist theory as extrapolated from the Bible, thereby further discrediting it, and perpetuating the idea that humanity can explain the entirety of the cosmos from the beginning of its history, forcing God to what many saw as merely a starting role. Modern calculations and equations have allowed astronomers to what they call reverse engineer the universe to the point that they can explain each stage of the universe up until almost the beginning of the time, roughly 10 to the negative 42 seconds before the initial bang. Many secularists consequently dismiss the role of any god, since the universe is almost entirely explainable. Many scientists believe it will be entirely explained eventually. This was the largest complication of the Big Bang from a religious point of view. An argument with religious origins posits that God still plays a role in the apparently explainable universe and maintains a sense of purpose of humanity in the chaos of the Big Bang, the creation of mankind was such a chance event that God's hand must have been present in the chaos. Scientists originally refused to acknowledge the Big Bang, as it suggested that something had to start the universe. Scientists, unfortunately, were forced to accept this beginning by their own hand, as in extrapolating Hubble's law backwards, we saw that receding galaxies could be extrapolated to a singularity at roughly 13.8 billion years ago, providing both an age for the universe and an absolute beginning of time. Many suggest that ever since the Copernican revolution, there is a certain faith to science, and believing that every single thing should be explained in a rational cause and effect way. This faith is violated by the discovery that the cause and effect system of science may have started with the first cause, the Big Bang, that is currently unexplainable by science. This was particularly painful for many scientists, as many reactions range from confusion to frustration to flat-out rage. As I mentioned, the idea of a beginning to most scientists was, quote, sentence. Some sources even suggest that Einstein's mistake in his theory, the mistake which postponed the recognition of an expanding universe, was an intentional act of Einstein himself to obscure the truth, as he was well known to vehemently oppose the idea of a beginning. The Big Bang presents a great degree of disparity for the future of cosmology and humanity's worldview. It does so in two ways, by erasing its own evidence and further decentralizing mankind from the center of the universe. In a remarkable, frightening way, and this totally blows me away, the Big Bang model predicts the very end of cosmology of the whole, as a whole. The evidence for the Big Bang theory is erasing itself as the universe expands, a concept that has been coined cosmic amnesia. As the universe expands in all directions, our observable universe, which we can see as the yellow region here, expands only linearly with time, and this is only what we can directly observe from Earth using the naked eye telescopes. Eventually, this will become a simple, flat, truly unbelievable void. This only grows linearly with time. As light from distant objects comes in, it takes proportionally longer time for that light to reach us, and thus we can only see so far into the universe. Observations of distant galaxies, which we can see as the red dots in these diagrams, indicate that the universe, which is the larger region of space indicated as the purple in this diagram, is accelerating and expanding at a much faster rate, faster than the speed of light, than our observable universe is expanding, such that distant galaxies, the red dots, will eventually disappear beyond our observable range, and what we see will go black. As time goes on, distant objects expand beyond what we see, and as we can see in the final diagram, the galaxies and objects are all still there. They're all in the purple greater region of space. We just can't see them. This means the three pillars of the Big Bang theory will be lost forever. The first two pillars, Einstein's theory of general relativity and Hubble's law, will both be irreproducible discoveries, as there will literally be no universe left to observe. The third pillar is the discovery of the cosmic microwave background radiation. This is an ambient radiation throughout the universe, which indicates that the universe was once a point of intensely concentrated energy and radiation. As the universe expands, this radiation fades, and the wavelength of the radiation will be stretched to undetectable levels. Astronomers in the future will be unable to create any form of cosmology that is not a steady-state, island universe static model. In addition to the fact that distant objects will be moving beyond our observable universe, galaxies that are very close to our own will have a strong enough gravity to pull together into one supergalaxy, which is shown in this artist's rendition of Earth floating sort of forlornly through the outskirts of this distant supergalaxy. This will happen elsewhere in the universe,